Hello everyone, and welcome to Capitol Watch for Friday, March 7th, our weekly look at the Missouri Legislature. And joining us from our governmental relations offices in Jefferson City is our Associate Executive Director for Advocacy and our Chief Lobbyist, Mike Reed. And Mike, one of the major developments this week was a proposal by the chairman of the House Budget Committee related to funding for public education. Tell us about that.
Yes, it was. It was a very interesting proposal that Chairman Rick Stream came up with. He put in the budget $122 million increase for in the foundation formula, but then he also said, and those are the House figures, but he said if in fact the governor's figures are correct, which would be $278 million, he would put that in the budget. So what we have is a two-tiered budget. We have a base floor of the 122, and if the budget money comes in, if the tax money comes in, as the governor has predicted, we get the higher figure. It's a very innovative way. It's a very interesting way because of the two different budget ideas that are going through this year. But we appreciate Representative Streams putting that in there and saying, look, if in fact my figures are wrong and the governor's figures are right, here's the governor's money and we'll put it in the budget and we'll have that much more for public education. Granted, we won't know until the end of the budget, towards the end of the budget year, how the figures are coming. So I wouldn't spend any of the money right now, but it's a good sign to get as much money as we can to try to fully fund the budget and to fully fund school funding in Missouri.
But Mike, this is a long way from a done deal yet. The House Budget Committee still has to consider it, the House and the Senate and so forth.
Oh yes, this is a long way from a done deal. But it's a good start. The House still has to go through and do what they and perfect the budget and pass it, and then pass it over to the Senate. That will be still several weeks away. So we're quite a ways away from having a finished budget project.
Some other important action, Mike, this week related to funding has to do with the current year budget and a supplemental appropriation bill passed by the Missouri House.
Yes, we felt that there was a shortfall in gaming money that hadn't come in this year, and the House put in $22 million for a supplemental budget to help us out. That we think that's short of what we think we need, but at least it's a movement in the right direction of getting more money in. So that supplemental budget will be going to the Senate and for them to work on this next week.
And also related to state budgeting and revenue, Mike, this week was a debate in the Missouri Senate on the issue of tax cuts, something, of course, we're watching very closely. Tell us about that debate.
Yes, Senator Kraus debated his bill on tax cuts. Senator Kraus's bill was part of his agreement, or a apparent agreement with the governor, that said the tax cuts will not go in until the foundation formula is fully funded and that there is a movement to decrease tax credits and to reduce the amount of tax credits that are going out in the state of Missouri. Quite an interesting debate in the Senate. There was not a lot of unanimity. There was not a lot of agreement on the way things should be going, and the bills were laid over. But it was at least a start on tax cuts in Missouri, and something that the governor appears that he will sign. He has stated that he would do that if the tax cuts came that way. So it was a good sign for a lot of discussion.
So Mike, where are we on the tax cut debate here in the General Assembly? We've got the House having approved a couple of tax cut bills, the Senate kind of getting bogged down on their tax cut. As you said, not a lot of agreement, at least on this particular bill this week. What's the outlook for tax cuts?
I wish I had the crystal ball to let you know. The House tax cut bills were passed and have gone over to the Senate. I think they will receive a lot of looking at in the Senate, and it would not surprise me that if that one of those tax cut bills would be voted on in the Senate and passed. I think Representative Berry's bill has a good chance of passing in the Senate, and that would then, right now, I believe his tax cut bill reduces general revenue by around $348 million, which is a significant sum, in fact, since we have not fully funded the foundation formula. However, there are certain agreements that were made in the Senate, and we'll have to see on how those play out in this situation. So we won't know anything for another 6 to 8 weeks.
Mike, another major issue this session we've been following is the issue of student transfers and the status of unaccredited districts. And we had a hearing on a couple of bills related to that in the House Education Committee this week.
Yes, House Education held a long series of hearings on the transfer bills, and there was a lot of very, very good discussions on these bills. The two bills that were discussed, one was by Representative Rick Stream, and the other one was by Representative Mike Searpoint. Both of those bills have in them that receiving districts, districts who are accredited, shall receive students from unaccredited districts to the extent that they have room. They also say that students should first stay in their own districts if there are accredited seats in those districts. Both of those things are very interesting and need to be worked on some more. However, both bills have places in them. Mike Searpoint's bill has passport scholarships. His bill states that if in fact there are no more seats in the public sector, then students could use passport scholarships to go to private sectarian schools. Representative Stream's bill says that if there are no more seats, then the students could go to a private non-sectarian school that is paid for by local district funds. This is something that is against the policies and against the resolutions of MSBA. We do not believe that public money should go to private schools because private schools are not held to the same standard as public schools. And in fact, in the Senate bill that came across, there are three separate accreditation types or standards that are held for charter schools, non-sectarian schools and public schools, and we just don't think that you know, if you're going to take public funds and educate public students, we all should be held to the same standards. So there's a lot of discussion that is going to be taking place in the next few weeks about the transfer issue and about what is best for students, because in the bottom line, that's what we're working at. What is best for all the students in the state of Missouri, and what is best for students in failing districts.
And Mike, the student transfer issue, it's kind of like the tax cut issue, isn't it? We've got various versions of that bill floating around in the General Assembly now, and I guess the future of the transfer issue is kind of murky at this point. Is that right?
It is very murky at this point. The House has stated that they're going to have a study group to start working on the House version of the Senate bill and as well as the House bills, and try to put the parties together to see if there is any agreement. There can be certain agreements. We do agree with certain parts of the Senate bill. However, the big sticking points is what do we do with students who are transferring out of unaccredited districts, and of course the sticking point of the Senate bill and the two House bills of public money going to a private school.
Another bill heard by the House Education Committee this week, Mike, had to do with the school calendar. Tell us about that one.
Yes, this is the chairman of the House Committee, Representative Steve Cookson's bill. This bill has some interesting parts in it. Part of it includes extending the hours in the school year, which we are very supportive of. It also states that summer school shall be for 6 weeks. They shall be held for 144 hours, and that for 4 days each week for 6 weeks, and they shall be for a certain time. And students who do not do proficient on certain tests must go to summer school. It's a very interesting concept. But the other part states that the state of Missouri mandates that schools start, his original bill said after Labor Day and must finish by Memorial Day. He discussed an amendment that he would put on his bill that said you have to start no earlier than 7 days before Labor Day. So any place from the 1st of September up through the last of August. But again, there is no local control about this. About 6 years ago, a bill was passed that stated school start dates are in the realm of the local school board, and school boards can start anytime within 10 days of the 1st of September. And if you want to start earlier than that, then you must hold a public hearing, and at that time then discuss school start date with the members of the community, and then the school board votes on it. It's a complete local control. What is happening is what the representative wants is to have the state mandate. Now, he will disagree with my statement, but it looks to me like this is a state mandate falling down on certain things. We believe that people in the local districts know what's best. So if school needs to start in a tourism area after Labor Day, then you have the right and you have the obligation and the opportunity to do that. If it works best in your schedule, according to the people who live in the community, to start sometimes prior to Labor Day, then again, it's up to the people in the community to make that decision. To me, this bill takes away, and to our members, this is part of the resolutions that we have, it takes away local control. And we urge our members to write their representatives and tell them that this bill is not good for the students of the state of Missouri.
And on the Senate side, Mike, the Senate Education Committee met again this week.
Yes, the Senate Education Committee met and heard several bills. They heard Senator Keaveney's bills about funding preschool education, especially in districts where there's a high poverty rate and people who in failing school districts. And it was a very good discussion. And again, this was talking about preschool and funding preschool in those areas. The other thing that the Senate heard was Senator Emery's bill that would give a letter grade to each school building. So it's an A, B, C, D, and F, depending upon the scores of the MAP scores that each building receives. We believe there's a better way to do that. We believe that the best way is to put all the test scores on the school's website so people can understand what they're talking about. Just a letter grade, because we don't know what all goes into a B. You know, is it good facilities, teacher training, et cetera, et cetera. So we believe the best way to do it is to put all of the discussion and have the discussion on the website of what are all the grades of the building, so people can be fully informed rather than just dumbing it down to just a letter grade.
Well, Mike, we are into March, approaching the midpoint of the General Assembly session. What can we expect this coming week?
Well, this is going to be an interesting week because this is the week right before spring break. So I think you'll see a lot of movement in trying to get bills from one house to the other. Both budget committees will be working very hard this week. And I believe that there'll be a lot of movement in the House to try to come up with some more ideas concerning where are we in the transfer bill. Now, they probably will not hit the floor for another couple of weeks, but I think there'll be a lot of discussion on where we are on those things. The next Thursday is the last day of session for a week. They take the week of the 16th off for spring break, and I think that's probably good for everyone because right now nerves are being a little frayed. There's a lot of pressure and a lot of acrimony in some areas, and so it's probably a good idea that we have a little time off to reflect and see what's happening. And it's a really good time during spring break for our members to get hold of their elected officials and their representatives and to discuss many of these bills and how they affect the local community.
All right, Mike Reed, as always, thanks very much for being with us and giving us your update from Jefferson City. We thank you as well and urge you to keep up to date on legislative issues through our Legislative Voice electronic newsletter we send you every Friday, our daily updates on our blog, and of course through this program. Thanks a lot for joining us on this edition of MSBA's Capitol Watch.